Subaru's family-sized XV crossover model looks a better prospect in a much improved guise that delivers a smarter interior, additional technology and extra efficiency. As before, its major strength lies with the capable symmetrical permanent four-wheel drive system fitted to every model. Now though, there are also other reasons why Qashqai segment buyers might like this car.
Want a crossover? Well, lots of people do, it seems. And if for you the car in question needs to be family sized, there's lots of choice in the Qashqai class. Nearly all the options on offer are essentially delivering a family hatchback with SUV attitude, but not much else. What if, though, a car of this kind could offer a little substance as well as a lot of style? What if it could actually walk the walk off-road as well as talk the talk on it? Well, that'd be quite something. That would be unique. And that's exactly what Subaru's much improved XV claims to be designed to deliver. If any brand was going to be able to create a model capable of doing this, you'd put money on Subaru to do it. Now, they were building products of this kind way before the concept became fashionable, with a history going all the way back to 1995 and the launch of the legacy Outback, a chunky all-wheel drive estate, then followed by the more overtly SUV-like Tribeca and the more recent Forester models. None of these cars have really caught the imagination of British buyers, but this one has. A breath of fresh air amongst prissier crossovers in this segment that's now firmly established as one of Subaru's strongest sellers. Here, if the Japanese brand is to be believed, you get the best of both worlds. Fashionable looks and an easy urban demeanour, yet at the same time, one of the highest ground clearances in the class, along with a permanent symmetrical all-wheel drive system that gives the XV off-road ability its rivals can only dream about. We noticed when we first tried this car in 2012 that if Subaru could only match all of this with a higher quality cabin, greater connectivity and extra efficiency, it'd have a very strong product indeed on its hands. Well, now it has. For the 2016 model year, the interior is being classily upgraded with a 7-inch factory-fit Starlink infotainment system, and the engines beneath the bonnet are now a little more frugal. Plus a slightly smarter exterior styling too. But will this all be enough to keep this XV current and appealing as a more capable offering in the Qashqai sector? Let's find out. Crossover models as a breed are all about what they say. The raised driving position, the plastic body cladding, and the big wheels, and not a lot else. Subaru as a brand doesn't hold with that. Now, here's a company that cares about what its cars can actually do, as well as a school run statement that they make, with the result that the XV has far more off-road ability than most buyers would expect. It does, in short, offer a different approach to the Qashqai and Kuga norm in this segment, something that you get a feel for from the very moment you slip behind the wheel. Rev the engine a little, and you know you're in a Subaru, thanks to that engine's characteristic flat, thrumming boxer engine beat. Both of the mainstream four-cylinder engines on offer use that boxer configuration, one in which the cylinders lay flat and whiz back and forth like a boxer's fists. There's a single petrol option, a 150 PS 2-litre unit, available either with a manual gearbox or with a 6-speed Lineartronic CVT automatic. Either way, 62 miles an hour takes around 10.5 seconds en route to 116 miles an hour. Most buyers, though, will opt for the 174 PS manual-only 2-litre diesel model that I'm trying here. Both engines now benefit from longer gear ratios, which will make them a touch more efficient and also a little more relaxed at cruising speeds. So, how does this car fare on the road? Well, for a start, the driving position is extremely good, with decent adjustment of both the seat and the steering wheel. The windscreen pillars are refreshingly slim, although the rear three-quarter view will have many relying on the now standard rear parking camera when nudging into a parking bay. Get beyond the city limits and give the throttle a good prod, and you're rewarded with a nice gravelly thrum from this 2-litre diesel, as 60 is dispatched in 9.3 seconds on the way to 120 miles an hour. Thanks to 350 newton meters of torque, there's reasonable pulling power through the sweet shifting 6-speed gearbox too, if not quite as much as is provided by some comparable rivals. And around the twisty stuff, well, we had reasonable hopes here, given the way Subaru talks about this XV having the lowest centre of gravity in the segment, thanks to the Boxster engine's placement very low in the car. Now that ought to make it very taut around the corners, but it doesn't feel that way the first time you throw this XV into a tight bend. The raised driving position makes the car feel a little, well, precarious, but stick with it and you'll find plenty of grip. In fact, the more you drive it, the more confident you get, and it actually becomes really good fun. Or it would be if the electric power steering offered a bit more feel. In wet or wintry conditions, this car's tractional advantages over its rivals really begin to shine through. Some family crossovers can't be ordered with four-wheel drive at all, and those who do offer it charge exorbitantly for the privilege. Even when the model in question does have 4x4 capability, it'll almost certainly be one of those part-time systems where the car runs front-driven most of the time, adding in all-wheel traction only when a slippery surface demands it. And with a Subaru, you don't get any of that. Instead, the symmetrical four-wheel drive system is permanent for a much greater feeling of balance and control. And that'll help if you're towing. This car can lug along a 1.6-ton brake trailer, provided you choose the manual gearbox. You'd expect that symmetrical setup to further come into its own off-road, and sure enough it does, aided by 220mm of ground clearance, a full 30mm more than you get in a Nissan Qashqai, and 9mm more even than a supposedly more rugged Land Rover Discovery Sport. Not that you'd be taking on the Rubicon Trail. A 19.6-degree approach angle means really steep head-on inclines might be beyond you, and of course, like all crossovers, this one lacks proper off-roading mechanicals like a low-range transfer box or lockable individual axle diffs. But unless you're somewhere where you really shouldn't have ventured into the first place in your XV, you won't need any of that stuff anyway. A manual car like this one distributes its torque equally 50-50 front to rear, with a viscous coupling to change the symmetrical system's balance whenever a front wheel or a rear wheel slips. It's as pure a four-wheel drive setup as you could possibly hope for, and it just works, even when only one wheel has traction. There's also hill start assist to prevent the car rolling backwards when you're beginning on a sharp incline, and all XVs get a very capable VDC stability control system, which comes in very handy if you forget quite how muddy your tyres are. Plus you can switch it off if you want the kind of momentum maintaining wheel spin that'll get you through really slippery sections. Of course, if you are a typical crossover customer, then you might be wondering whether this kind of capability is really necessary. I suppose the answer to that is like having a watch that's waterproof to 200 meters. And you probably never need it, but it is good to know it's there. The XV's basic shape is a fairly faithful representation of the crossover norm, but it's got a purposeful, chunky stance and some very interesting details that have been subtly developed as part of this minor facelift. Changes include the adoption of these shapelier Hawkeye headlamps and the redesigned bumper featuring these more distinctive L-shaped fairings around the fog lights. The grille's been redesigned too, but remains recognisably Subaru in its design, positioned above a huge air intake below the number plate. In profile, you get these Audi all-road style wheel arch extensions that look agreeably rugged, shrouding smart black and silver diamond cut 17-inch aluminium alloy wheels that remind me of the Matchbox cars I had as a kid. This lower crease above the sills gives the flanks some shape. There's UV protection glass that's privacy tinted at the rear, and these smart silver roof rails are standard on every model. At the rear, as before, these black plastic lower corner panels attempt to create a rugged look and flank this central body-coloured skid plate. Now bear in mind that you lose a lot of the contrast if you go for a dark paint shade, so do choose your colour carefully. Changes include this more discreet boot spoiler and these revised clear lensed LED lamp clusters with their more distinctive nighttime signature. More important though are the changes that Subaru has made inside. previously, so many potential XV buyers admired the exterior looks, only to find themselves a little disappointed when they acquainted themselves with the dark, rather plasticky interior. So Subaru has stepped things up a gear with higher quality materials and nice touches like this orange stitching applied to this top model's part leather-lined interior. You'll find it on the seats, on the steering wheel and on the door armrests. The key cabin change is this smart 7-inch colour touchscreen that dominates the centre console and comes complete with Subaru's latest Starlink infotainment technology. Now, as you'd expect, it's the portal from which you access the 6-speaker stereo and the usual phone and informational features, as well as the satellite navigation setup that you'll find fitted to plusher variants like this one. The screen offers a smartphone-style swipe and pinch control function for matte displays and also houses a standard-fit rear-view camera. This offers a super-wide 160-degree field of view behind the car when you're reversing. Other functions, such as changing navigation settings or adjusting the power or temperature of the climate control, can be dealt with by voice control, allowing the driver to keep their eyes on the road ahead. The system also allows Apple iPhone users to activate Siri Eyes Free functionality, providing full voice control of their mobile device when it's linked into the Starlink system. The smartphone functionality also extends to a range of apps, which enable occupants to display weather forecasts and traffic reports, access wireless audio, receive the latest news updates, and to check their calendar while they're on the move. A useful package of updates then, but of course there was only so much that could be done as part of this relatively minor midterm update. So perceived quality still isn't quite at the level that you'd enjoy in some rivals, although to some extent that is compensated for by the rugged, built-to-last feel. There's nothing wrong with the clear set of dials you view through the leather-trimmed multifunction steering wheel, although some of the other ergonomics do remain a little haphazard, such as the way that the seat heater switches are hidden away here behind the handbrake, and also the fact that the temperature controls are at the bottom of the centre stack, but the digital readout that they deliver displays right up at the top of this 4.3-inch multi-information panel that sits above these centre vents. Now, this screen brings key information into your line of sight, offering separate scrollable menu options that show the time, your fuel economy, your running cost history, trip computer functions, and also the status of the car's standard symmetrical all-wheel drive system. As for practicality, well, it would have been nice if the USB and aux-in points had been placed in a covered area for security when you're charging up your phone. They're in this open storage cubby in front of the gear stick, while behind that lever is this coin tray in front of two coverable cup holders. There's a lidded storage box between the seats too, complete with a 12-volt socket, but like the door pockets and the glove box, it is rather small. We do though like the way that the heater controls are large and chunky enough to be used by a gloved hand. Accessibility to the back is helped by doors that open wider than those fitted to many competitor models. Now, once inside, Subaru talks of room for 3 adults, but this high centre transmission tunnel will make that difficult to achieve on all but the shortest journeys. It will be fine for 3 children though. On the plus side, the XV's comparatively long wheelbase gives a decent amount of rear legroom, the space available helped by front seats that you can comfortably get your feet under. Rear passengers get their own heater ducts, and if there are only 2 of you, then you'll be able to use the dual cup holders in this fold-down centre armrest. Out back, there's a 380-litre boot capacity. That's less than most rivals offer, and the small underfloor boot compartment doesn't yield much extra room. And this lower space is made possible by the fact that, rather disappointingly, for such a capable crossover, Subaru doesn't provide any sort of temporary spare wheel, just one of those fiddly tyre mobility kits. There's no 12-volt socket either, although you do get the usual bag hooks and tie-down points. And if you push forward these 60-40 split-folding rear seat backs, then the load area revealed isn't totally flat, but it is as spacious as most owners will need it to be, 1,270 litres in total. So, what will you pay for one of these? Well, the XV may prove to be rather more affordable than you might expect a four-wheel drive family-sized crossover model to be, pitched in the £22,000 to £26,000 bracket, with most mainstream models firmly pitched towards the lower end of that spectrum. There's a £2,000 premium to go from a 2-litre petrol model to an equivalently specified 2-litre diesel, and choose a petrol variant, and there's a £1,500 option of the Lineartronic automatic gearbox. Now, onto the value proposition that kind of pricing represents. Lazy journalists who tell you that the car's quite expensive haven't taken account either of its standard all-wheel drive system or the power of its engines. Now, when you do compare like with like in this segment, you should find the XV well pitched against its competitors, where there are any. If you're looking at petrol power, then the only green pump-fueled family crossover segment rival with four-wheel drive is the all-grip version of Suzuki's SX4 S-Cross, a 1.6-litre model with a lot less torque and power, and that's not a lot cheaper. Otherwise, you'd have to find 40% more money to get yourself a petrol four-wheel drive version of a compact SUV like Honda's CR-V or Toyota's RAV4. More of a test for Subaru's pricing strategy comes when you consider this diesel model, the variant that most potential buyers will probably want. After all, where four-wheel drive is offered in the family crossover segment, it's nearly always mated to a diesel engine. Now, with this XV, you'll need at least a £24,000 budget for this kind of package, the kind of money that could also buy you equivalent four-wheel drive diesel versions of rivals like Renault's Kuga and Ford's Kuga. With those cars, though, you're getting a part-time 4x4 setup. The more capable, permanent symmetrical system that Subaru uses will be far more use when towing or in the alpine mountain passes on your next skiing holiday. It all comes down to what you want. What else is there? Well, a four-wheel drive Nissan Qashqai probably isn't worth considering, not only because it too has a part-time 4x4 system, but also because it requires a £27,000 budget. And if you're going to spend that much, well, you might as well buy a four-wheel drive diesel compact SUV like Honda's CR-V. The only family-sized four-wheel drive crossover models that can undercut this Subaru on price do so because they offer less power. 1.6-litre models like Mitsubishi's ASX, 114 PS, and Suzuki's SX4 S-Cross, 120 PS, and 2-litre contenders like the 110 PS version of Skoda's Yeti. If, having considered all of this, you conclude that it is an XV that you really want, then you're going to need to know just how generous Subaru has been with the standard spec. Well, let's see. Even on entry-level SE variants, the kit list runs to 17-inch alloy wheels, roof rails, front fog lamps, heated power folding mirrors, UV protection glass that's privacy tinted further back, auto headlamps and wipers, wiper de-icers, headlight washers, and a Thatcham Category 1 alarm immobiliser. Inside there's dual zone air conditioning, a keyless access system with a push-button starter, heated front seats, cruise control, plus leather for the gear stick and the multifunction steering wheel. Also standard is Subaru's Starlink infotainment system with its 7-inch colour touchscreen, the portal via which you access the 6-speaker stereo system, view the standard rear-view camera and use the Bluetooth phone functionality. The package includes voice recognition, dual USB ports and an aux-in jack. Find the £3,000 premium Subaru requires for this car's premium trim, and of course you get a lot more. The seats get part leather orange stitch trim and 8-way electrical adjustment. The Starlink infotainment system has SD card navigation and Siri eyes-free control. And there's a power sliding glass sunroof. If you want to go further, then options include the usual tow bars, roof racks, roof boxes and bike carriers. Plus you can specify steel underguards for rough off-road work. For the boot area, there are various cargo nets and cargo trays, a boot flap to cover the loading sill and a dog guard if you need it. Side protectors might be useful to ward off parking dents, and there's even an in-car refrigerator. Oh, and rear side window sunshades that'll look after the kids in the back. Now, safety-wise, the age of this car's design precludes it from being able to offer the latest electronic safety systems that you'll find on some rivals. But that doesn't stop it from being a very safe place to put your family. There are the normal front, side and curtain airbags, plus a driver's knee bag. And as expected, you get the usual electronic aids for traction and stability control to hopefully ensure that you never have to use them. There's a brake assist feature built into the 4-sensor, 4-channel ABS system to maximise deceleration and emergency stops. And hill start assist is also included to stop you from drifting backwards on uphill junctions. Safety pedal setup prevents foot injuries in crashes, and there are also anti-whiplash head restraints and ISOFIX child seat fastenings. All that adds up to quite a lot, which is why the XV received a 5-star Euro NCAP crash safety rating. Well, so what, I hear you say, doesn't every new car these days? Well, what's a bit different here is the breakdown of the test scores. This car scored high marks in all 4 categories tested, but registered 90% in the child occupant category, amongst the best of any car on sale, and also scored maximum points for its protection of 18-month-old infants, with the XV's side impact protection singled out for specific praise. With most crossover vehicles being bought by families, this is something to seriously think about when coming to a sensible, measured decision about which car to buy. It's fair to say that Subaru weren't exactly quick out of the blocks when it came to driving down the cost of vehicle ownership. I mean, their first diesel engine only arrived in 2008. Since then, though, the company has rapidly been making up for lost time. Its distinctive boxer diesel design has been continually tweaked and teased to lower emissions and to improve fuel economy, while a more efficient generation of petrol engines is doing much to banish Subaru's old reputation of being rather fond of the drink. All well and good, but if you ask other brands why they don't offer permanent four-wheel drive as standard in this segment, they'll tell you that the weight and complexity of such a setup is too expensive in terms of fuel consumption and CO2. Now, Subaru disagree. The company accepts that it's never going to be able to offer an efficiency class leader to crossover buyers all the time it standardizes this setup, but it does believe that it can offer this peace of mind package with minimal impact on running costs. Factors such as a relatively light body shell, slippery aerodynamics and an efficient CVT auto gearbox all help the Japanese brand's cause here, as does an auto start-stop function that cuts the engine when you don't need it, stuck in traffic or waiting at the lights. In addition, this improved model gets a set of longer gear ratios that claim to further aid clean frugality. You're talking a 2% improvement for petrol buyers and a 4% enhancement for this diesel variant. Will it all be enough? Well, you be the judge. This 2-litre diesel model now manages 52.3 miles per gallon on the combined cycle and 114 grams per kilometre of CO2, which means that this properly capable permanent four-wheel drive crossover costs only fractionally more to run than direct rivals with part-time four-wheel drive systems. Cars like four-wheel drive diesel versions of Nissan's Qashqai, Renault's Kuga, Ford's Kuga, Hyundai's Tucson and Mazda's CX-5. If winter journeying peace of mind is a priority for you, then we think you're likely to see that as a price worth paying to get yourself a more capable car. Go for the petrol 2-litre model and you'll attain the best figures with the CVT gearbox. With this auto fitted, you'll get a best of 43.5 miles per gallon and 151 grams per kilometre. The manual manages 40.4 miles per gallon and 160 grams per kilometre. In other words, it's time to lay the legend of the fearsomely thirsty Subaru to rest at last. A decently sized 60-litre fuel tank gives all models a useful touring range, some 660 miles if you go for the diesel. And there are useful fuel consumption monitoring tools built into the multifunction display on top of the dash that help you optimise your driving efficiency over time. Residual values are on a par with mainstream models in this class, and insurance groups are competitive, providing you rate them against comparably powerful four-wheel drive diesel rivals. You can up group 21E or 22E for the petrol models, and groups 26E or 27E for this diesel version. What else? Well, there's a peace of mind of a 5-year, 100,000-mile warranty that embarrasses the 3-year, 60,000-mile package that most rivals offer. You also get a 3-year recovery and roadside assistance package that you will almost certainly never need. Here's a car that makes more sense the more you think about it. It may not be quite as flashy as some other segment rivals, but there's plenty else to like. Primarily the standard four-wheel drive system, the brilliant build quality, the lovely charismatic boxer engines, and this XV's surprising off-road ability. Then add in high equipment levels, strong standards of safety, and a superbly comprehensive after-sales care package. It's starting to look rather tempting now, isn't it? Especially as some of the things that might previously put you off, a plasticky cabin, a lack of media connectivity, and very average levels of running cost efficiency, have all been usefully improved with this smarter looking revised model. Of course, this Subaru still isn't perfect. Ride and refinement could be better, the boot could be bigger, and it's still never going to challenge for class honours on an economy run. These things needn't be deal breakers though. And for many loyal buyers, they certainly don't dilute this XV's many virtues. In summary then, what we have here is a refreshing change from the whole style over substance approach that seems to characterise so many crossover models. It's something Subaru's never quite understood, and hopefully never will.